There you go. Fine. I'm an alcoholic. My name's Gordon Rail. It's nice to be here with you all. I do very, very much appreciate y'all's group. I hear good things about you all over the place. And I came in here tonight and I see that some people that I met, they were trying to learn a little bit about themselves and alcoholism. I met them and they found a home here with you. And so I'm grateful for that. My sobriety date is January the 15th, 1980. I have heroes in this program, and there was a fellow named Bryant Bivens, and he would never get behind this podium without saying that the greatest thing that ever happened in the life of this alcoholic, he would say, is Alcoholics Anonymous. And I agree. That I didn't know what he was talking about when I first heard him say it, but I do now, and I have for a long time. And I suspect many of you all have. Greatest thing in the world that ever happened to this alcoholic was finding you folks, and you all taking so much time and patience and with me. And I'll be forever grateful. Forever grateful. At the end of this, I hope that maybe something will come from this, that you all will know a couple of things about me. One, maybe you'll know that I take this program seriously. Two, maybe hopefully you'll know that I take you seriously. But thirdly, I hope you'll understand that I have learned how to not take myself so seriously any longer, and that is good, so I am very, very grateful. Laughter's healing, I believe, and we have cried enough, or at least I have. So I don't mean to be disrespectful to you or this program, but I've been told that laughter is healing, and that when a man or a woman has come to a place where they can laugh at themselves, they have conquered themselves. And thanks to this program for that. I was born in Siler City, not too far from here, a long time ago. My inventory in this program has taught. I'm speaking to you from my fourth and fifth steps in this program. Life is lived forward and understood backwards. And what I know, I have learned here. A guy who was a friend of this group for many years, who's passed on now, named Keith Lewis. Keith helped me when I first came into AA with two things. First, he said, "Gordon, it ain't what we know. It's just about half of what we know just ain't so." And secondly, we don't know what we don't know. And so those things have proven to be very, very helpful to me. But my inventory reveals that my sixth grade report card my mother passed away in 2002, and we were cleaning out things and found all my school report cards wrapped in a ribbon. Back in the day, the teachers would send them home to you, and they'd write in red pencil when there was a little message they wanted to send to your parents. And my sixth grade report card in red pencil says, "Will not pay attention, will not follow directions." I hadn't had a drink then, but I needed one. I wasn't getting along real good even then. I played sports in school, from Little League to Pony League to American Legion baseball in high school, and I played football and basketball, and I didn't drink. Not because I had any feelings about it, but back in those days, the coaches would say, if you drink or smoke cigarettes, we'll throw you off the ball team. So I guess my ego was being fed fine with walking around school with that monogram jacket on, or running out on that basketball court or baseball field or wherever. But I didn't drink. Went away to college, a small college, Campbell College. Now it's a university. Campbell College. And I wasn't good enough to play sports at that level. And I'm staying in a dormitory, and fellow said, do you drink? And I thought, well, what do you think I am? Some sort of a little hayseed or something from the country, the sticks? Of course I drink. So we go to a little place in Dunn, North Carolina called Doug's Tavern. And I'm glad it was dark in there. I'm a quick learner, and when people ordered, I ordered what they ordered, a Miller High Life. The reason I'm glad it was dark is that stuff was coming out of my nose and ears and eyes, and it tasted awful. And they looked over at me and said, how you doing? And I said, great. I'm just great. But I don't know if it was the first trip, second or third or whatever, but I caught the buzz, the magic. Bill Wilson called it the elixir of the gods in our textbook, and Dr. Bob called it the panacea of all human ills. And I found the magic. It wasn't long before people were saying, let Gordon drive. Gordon can handle his beer. You can hardly tell Gordon's been drinking. Patted me on the back, and my head swelled up so big I couldn't hardly get it in the car. But I thought I was doing it right. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I look forward to the next time. Looking back with what I know about alcoholism now and my behavior at that time, I was on my way here then. I was in trouble with alcohol a long time before I got in trouble, so to speak. So it was way too important to me, and I sure did look forward to next Thursday night or Friday night or whenever. I just look forward to it. I was in a pretty serious automobile accident when I was 18, 19 years old, and broke my leg real bad, and missed, dropped out of school and didn't walk for almost a year without a crutch at least, or a walking cane or something. Stayed in hospital for three months or so, and came back to school, and they treated me like a hero. And I dragged that leg around, and if you don't watch me, I'll drag it around tonight. On you, I get a little. I had a 40% disability or so, and all I ever wanted to do was be a coach. I had a coach in high school who really, really took time with me, and I was just going to model my life after his, but I couldn't do that anymore now because I can't demonstrate, I can't show kids how to play basketball or baseball or whatever because I just can't move. So I'm kind of a duck out of water a little bit, and there, so. But I just kept on keeping on. Some friends were getting married, and I met a young lady, and she liked me, and I liked her. We were sparking, and we got married. Wasn't long. I was down in Bowie's Creek, and I moved her to Winston-Salem. What I didn't, I've never been able to manage money. The only thing I know about money is when you run out, you need more. And I don't worry about it until I run out. And so I wasn't very good at that. And I had to leave and go up there because my money's not working out. I'm drinking, and I'm married, and I got a child on the way, and I go to Winston where I can work on a truck dock, a union wage at night, and go to college during the day. And so that's what I did. But it was a geographical cure because I was burning my bridges in Bowie's Creek pretty fast by then. I got up to Winston, and like a lot of things, I'm fast out of the gate. I'm a great starter. I make a good first impression, they say. But if you hang around, things are going to get tacky because I'm going to get tacky. I got no staying power. I start many things and finish few. And so I'm rolling along there, and by this time I got 2 children, and I'm not getting along very well with my schooling at Wake Forest, so I'll go back to Bowie's Creek and talk them into letting me come in, and they graduated me after one summer school. Told me if I made 2 B's, they'd graduate me, and that's what I did. I had a good job waiting for me. The trucking company gave me a great job. Wasn't long, though, before I was in trouble in Winston in my mind, and really, not only in my mind, I'm writing bad checks and got all kind of things going on, and I was afraid the big bosses were going to find out about me, so I asked for a field transfer to go out into the field to Florence, South Carolina. They didn't understand. There were 200 and some salesmen in that company. All of them wanted to come to Winston-Salem. I had a great career path of people who were sponsoring me and were at the top of the company, and I asked to be transferred. And I just told them I wanted field experience. I just wanted to get out of Winston. That's what it amounted to. So anyway, I go down there and I do what I always do. I start off great, and then I get bored, and whatever happens, I joined every club that you could join. I became very active in the city, Chamber of Commerce, and all sorts of things. And my production, of course, starts dropping off in my job. I'm going to, I was reading Bill's story in the AA book, and it starts talking about his trouble, and then he goes on and on and on and on with his drinking, until he was in his mid to late 30s, and that's where I'm trying to get to up here with you all tonight. So I'm in trouble with alcohol. I finally get a DWI that I can't buy my way out of or talk my way out of, and so I just quit that job. I resigned. Years later, I wrote the man a letter who was very, very much a very, very important man in that part of my life, and I told him that I had a drinking problem, and I wanted to apologize to him for all the trouble I'd caused, and I was in AA by then, and he wrote me right back and said, "Gordon, my goodness, we had an EAP program. We would have helped you. But you see, I'm so brilliant that I think I know everything, and where I came from, no way out except for me just to quit." So I did. And I floundered and floundered. I'll tell you, though, a little bit about about this working deal, and I'm in my mid to late 20s now, and I'll give you a day in my life. I wake up in the morning and I go in. I'm living in a big home in a nice subdivision. My wife has had to return to teaching school because of the mess I've got us in financially, but I've got 3 children, and I wake up in the morning and I go and I start making the breakfast for those folks. And as soon as I get it almost ready, I go out the door when I hear them moving around, because I don't want to talk to my wife this morning. I don't want that chin music. And I take off for my office. I go to my office before anybody gets there, and I check my mail and messages and whatever to see who might be looking for me. And then I go check other people's desks to see if they got anything to say about me. And then I take off before anybody else gets there. I go out to a service station, beer joint type place on the road near where I live, and I hide my car behind it. And when my wife drives by delivering these children to school and nurseries and taking herself to school, I'm standing in a wash bay with a 3-piece suit on drinking a beer, 7:30 in the morning. And then I go to a payphone right outside, and I call my office and tell them I've got a big day planned. I'm going to Orangeburg or Charleston or wherever. I'm about 50 miles out of town, and I'll see them this afternoon. And they're trying to tell me some things, and I pretend like I can't hear them because of the traffic going by and whatever. And then I can go back home. And I got to go home because I have credit cards that my wife knows nothing about. I've got bad check charges and phone bills and all kind of things that she doesn't know anything about. So I'm back home, and I call 4 or 5 of my big customers, wherever I said I was going, Orangeburg, for example. And I say something like, "This is Gordon, I'm in the area, I'm real busy. If there's anything you need me for, I'll come by. But if not, I'll catch you next time." And they would say, "Oh, Gordon, things are fine." And then I'd say, "I'm sending you those tickets to the Augusta golf tournament or the South Carolina football game or whatever. They're in the mail." My thinking was if my company was looking for me, they would call 2 or 3 of those big customers and they would cover for me. "Oh yeah, he's around here. He's here early this morning." Of course, the trap or the hole I'm digging for myself is that I'm doing that on my own home telephone, and there's no way to get reimbursed for that. So I'm digging the hole deeper and deeper and deeper. Part of the reason I'm home is to pick up the phone bill, and so here I am. Well, then I got to entertain myself for the rest of the day because tomorrow's going to be different. I'm not going to do this tomorrow. I'm going to do right tomorrow and have a good day. But today, it's already messed up. So I go out to a country club and play cards, or I go to a beer joint or someplace because I can't stand to be by myself, and I drink. At about 5 o'clock, I go back to a payphone and I call the office and tell them I'm about 50 miles out of town, I've had a big day, and I'll see them in the morning. And then I ride around and I drink, and I get in my neighborhood, and I won't go on the street that I live on because I don't want my wife or children to see me. I'm drinking, and I ride around and around and around. I won't go home. And then finally, I pull up in the driveway and I go in with a pint, and my wife says, "You've been drinking." And I hold up the pint, and I've had 1 or 2 out of that. Of course, I've already had one and other stuff all day long. And I say, "Well, I've had a drink. Of course, I've had a hard day." Well, I have had a hard day, haven't I? Living that lie and hiding and, doing what I've been doing. So with that, I stand before you tonight. I used to tell a lot of stories about the funny things about my drinking, but the longer I stay, the less funny they become because I realize how bad I treated people and how disrespectful and selfish and self-centered and I violated people. There's nothing funny about that. But anyway, I have gone 3 and 4 days and not seen those children awake. I'd get home after they went to bed at night, and I would get up before they woke up, get out before they woke up in the morning. And I've been able to make amends to them, and I'll tell you about that, hopefully, as we go along. My wife asked me to leave, finally, and it was a relief when she asked me. Again, my sick mind, I'll be okay now. And I took off when she asked me to go. And I almost died. For the next 5 years, my inventory reveals that I had 20-some jobs all the way from Florida to Delaware and places in between. Got locked up a lot. I was in a couple of real serious automobile accidents. And I was a complete, I would roll into my children's lives and my ex-wife's life, and by then she had married, so I had a husband-in-law, and that wasn't easy to deal with either when your head was where mine was. But well, I'd roll in with a big deal, and of course I'd crash and burn. So I'd disappoint them time and time and time again. Same with my parents. I would roll in, and so that's the way I was operating. The couple of things happened to me that were very significant looking back. Didn't realize it at the time, but one night my mother was trying to keep the car keys away from me. I was determined to go out, and I'm trying to get the car keys away from her, and she falls in the den floor and screams, and my father comes running in there, and he sees me over the top of my mother, and he hit me with his, not his fist, but his hand. He slapped me. And I heard him say, what has happened to my family, And the next day, in the afternoon, he comes home from work early, or I thought he was at work, and he calls me out in the front yard and he said, "Son, you've got to go." And he handed me $100 and told me he'd take me to the bus station or wherever I wanted to go, but I had to go. And I said, "I'll go in a week or two." He said, "No, you're going today." What I didn't realize is he'd gone to the minister that day. He didn't go to work, and the minister sent him to see a physician, and the physician told him that my mother's blood pressure and her walking around crying and screaming and staying awake all night worried about me was going to kill her. And he said, you gotta get him out of there. So my dad said, "You put me in a place where a man's never supposed to be put, where I've got to choose between my son and my wife." He said, "This has nothing to do with God. God would never put a man in a place like this." He said, "I got to take care of your mother." So I don't know what I said to him. Y'all know I took his $100 though, and away I went. And I didn't go back there for about a year and a half. I didn't see my parents for the last year of my drinking. Was significant though. He put something in my backpack that he put a cinder block in my backpack, and I didn't know it. So when he did that, so a little later on, I'm having trouble with this child support business. I don't know what my husband-in-law is doing with the money, and I don't appreciate all of that. So, and the jig is up. I got to go to court. And they're through hearing my stuff, and I had to go to court. I'm going to back up a minute and tell you one more horrible thing that I was involved in. Before this, my ex-wife called me and said the children wanted to see me so bad that she was going to allow me to come and see them and not get on my case about the child support if I would just promise to come there not drinking, that the children wanted to see me so bad. So I jumped all over that. I was in Raleigh at the time. On that Friday, I took my boss's best pickup truck and got it washed and greased and gashed up and charged it to him. And he went home at noon on Friday, and as soon as he left, I left. Well, when you're driving with a permanent driver's license revocation, it'll make you right nervous. And so I got me a 6-pack of beer just to kind of nibble on going down the road to help me out. I stopped in Lumberton, and wine's fine, but liquor's quicker, and I bought me a pint. I stopped at a little grocery store, diner place to get me a chaser, and the lady won't wait on me. She's sitting in a booth with some truckers. So I beat my money on the counter, and she came over, and I critiqued her a little bit and told her she wasn't much of a waitress. She might want to look for another line of work. Well, it offended her. And about 2 miles later down the road, I didn't realize she looked out the window and saw me pour half that 7 up on the ground and fill it full of vodka, and off I go. She called the highway patrol. 2 or 3 miles down the road, they pulled me over, and the guy said, "You're doing fine, but we had a phone call about you." I knew where that came from. As soon as I get free from this place, I'm going to go burn that place down. That's what I'll consider doing that. So I told him how busy I was, and I must have been rum-dum real bad because this was dumb. I told him I had to go to court in Columbus County for my child support situation, and I really didn't have time to mess around here. I should have told him that somebody was dying or something. That was crazy. Tell him I was on my way to court, but I did. Well, he took me and breathalyzed me, and I blew a 28, and I'm not drunk. I'm just pickled. I drink right much. So he locked me up, and I'm telling the jailers about what I need to do about phone calls and this, that, and the other, and they weren't cooperative with me, so I told them what I thought of them. I stayed in jail there 3 days without having the benefit of a phone. They did not allow me to make a phone call for 3 days. Well, now I got to burn that place over here and sue Robeson County as soon as I can get out of here. So I finally get out, and I called the attorney in Whiteville and told him that I had some bad breaks and misunderstandings, not my fault at all, and I wanted to come down there and straighten it out. And he said, you come on and we will make it right. Again, I must not have been thinking real good, because when I sat down in that attorney's office, I don't even get in the chair good before I look up, and there's a deputy sheriff came right in behind me. He was so big he filled the door up. Well, I looked at that attorney and I said, I'm going to kill you. So now I got to burn a place and sue Robeson County and kill that lawyer. I'm having a hard time, rough time. So they take me to a magistrate, and the guy knew me. He had known me for years. And he said, Gordon, if you'll just tell me about how you can pay some of this child support and make some arrangements, this can go away. And I said, you can't get blood out of a turnip. And he locked me up. I went on a hunger strike. That didn't last long. But there I am. So I'm in a world of trouble. Well, they put a guy in jail who had been in a halfway house and got drunk in the halfway house, and he had to go serve his time. Well, you don't got a lot to do in jail, and I picked his brain a little bit about halfway house. Never heard of that. Thought I knew everything. So he told me some things about it. Well, I copped a plea and talked to the attorney again, and they allowed me to go to a halfway house and get out of jail. I said, I can work. I can pay child support. I'm in a halfway house. So they let me out. Took me on a Saturday morning, and Saturday night the manager said, "Okie doke, get on the van. We want to be on the van at 7:30. And I said, why? He said, we're going to AA. I said, whoa, no. I didn't sign up for AA. No. And they said, well, get on the van and we'll drop you by the jail on the way back over there. I went, whoa, don't be so hasty. Can a non-alcoholic go to AA? Yeah, it's open meet. I know what that meant. Sounds like I got the thing figured out pretty good here now, and things are going better, but guess what happened? They pulled up in the churchyard where I had been married, and I won't get out of the van. Same story. Either get out and get in, come on in, or we'll drop you by the jail on the way back. Gotta go. Walked in, and here comes a county commissioner and a very prominent businessman in Whiteville that I had known for years. And I thought, well, now, I have gotten into men's Bible class, and this is really going to be messed up now. They're going to find out about my drinking problem. I knew this AA was going to mess me up. One of them's got 2 cups of coffee, one of them's half full, and he handed it to me, and he said, Gordon, we've saved you a seat. We've been waiting on you. And they both laughed. I didn't think it was funny at all. What I didn't know is I'd known these men for years, I thought, but I didn't realize they were members of Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't know what AA was. I mean, I'd heard of it and told ugly jokes or stories, but I didn't know what I was talking about. In the next 2 or 3 months, those men spoon-fed me the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I had a wonderful experience there in Whiteville, as best I could, and what I did, but it's what I didn't do that got me. They lifted all those court orders off me, and I got out from under all that legal stuff. And I got an opportunity to go to Delaware, and I took off. They begged me don't go, and I went anyway. Wasn't long in Delaware before I was drinking again, and I almost died in Delaware. The drinking was horrible. You know, AA will mess up your drinking. And here before that, I could always make up these stories to myself, justifying myself, but I couldn't do that anymore. And so when I was at the end of that road, I called back to Whiteville, and they made arrangements to get me in a halfway house in Wilmington. I took a bus. I don't know how long it took me to get on the bus, a week or so, I think. I would go down there drunk and they wouldn't let me on the bus. Sometimes I'd go down there in the morning and the bus left at 6:30 in the evening. I'd get my days and nights mixed up. And so, but I finally got on the bus and I got down there. I got into that halfway house and there was a wonderful guy who actually got sober right here with you guys. His name was Harry Jackson, and he was a good member of AA and the counselor at the halfway house, and he's interviewing me to see if he's going to let me in. I haven't got two nickels to rub together. And he comes to a question. I breezed right through the home address stuff. I gave my mother and daddy's address, and he didn't question that. And he said, "Do you have any children?" And I said, "Why?" He said, "The question says, do you have any children?" I said, "What have they got to do with it?" He said, "I don't know. The question says, do you have any children?" I said, "I don't want them to know anything about this." He said, "Man, you're wearing me out." He said, "The question just says, do you have any children?" And so he said, "Let's get a cup of coffee," and he took me into the break room. And he looked at me and he said, "Gordon, I think you have some children, and I think you love them a lot. And if I'm right about that, you've come to the right place. Your children are in steps 8 and 9 of the 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's where my children were, and that's where yours are. Are you willing to do the work?" So I started, and Harry took me. That last drinking in Delaware, I had needed Alcoholics Anonymous for 4 or 5 years. But after that last deal in Delaware and coming to Wilmington, I wanted AA. Because I realized all the trust and the good feelings I had about myself that I had worked on those months in Whiteville, restoration with my children and my parents and the things that were going on and the new friends I'd met. All that went out the window when I took the first drink. It was gone. Any good feeling I had about myself was gone when I started drinking again. So this time I allowed Harry to take me through the steps. It was so funny. I would say, "Harry, I'm having trouble with step 2," and he'd say, "Gordon, you don't understand step 1, but I'll help you." And he took me along, and he talked to me, and he helped me help myself. And I'll be forever grateful. I realized I just, you know what the steps will do for you. That's what they'll do. And so what a relief it was to be a part of and not apart from. And especially when I got to my 5th step, I was very grateful that this man helped me through that. I felt such a relief, like a load had been lifted from me. And I felt like I joined AA. I felt like I was a part of it now. I was a member in good standing. So he was very active, and he got me doing things. I'll tell you a couple of tales that I got to tell about. I was not a quick learner, and he told me one time, he was mean to me. Some days I'd be grinning, and he'd say, "How you doing?" I'd say, "I'm fine, I'm just fine." He'd say, "Well, why don't you tell your face? You don't look fine." And then one night he took me to a discussion meeting, and we were sitting outside the meeting before we went in, and he said, "Gordon, I've been talking too much in the meeting. I want to make a pledge to you, get you to help me with something." I said, "I'll be glad to help you." He said, "When it comes my turn tonight, I'm going to say my name's Harry, I'm an alcoholic, and I pass. I've come to listen. Now, I've already made up my mind. I can go in there and hear everything that's said because I haven't got to spend any time thinking about what I'm going to say. I've already know what I'm going to do. Pass." I looked over at him and I said, "Harry, I'll do that too." He said, "Would you?" I think sponsors will lie to you a little bit. I think that they'll trick you. He had 10 years sobriety, and I had about 10 weeks, and I was babbling all the time and talking. And so he helped me help myself. I was on my pity pot one day. It was awful. Nothing was working. And I called him up to get some attention. And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Nothing." He said, "Well, ride to the hospital with me. I got an errand." I thought, well, I can talk to him on the way over there, so sure. Got in the car with him. He stopped at a 7-Eleven, and he threw me a couple of bucks and told me to go buy 2 packs of those generic cigarettes. And if I had $2 to buy some more, and I said, I got money. So I went and bought 4 packs, and we go to the detox, which was a locked ward upstairs. They let him in because they knew him, and they let me in because I was with him. He handed me the 4 packs of cigarettes and asked me to give these away while he was taking care of his business. And I said, I don't know anybody up here. He said, neither do I. And I said, well, how do you do it? He goes to the first hospital room door, and there's a guy sitting on the bed, and he knocked on the door facing, and he said, hi. And the guy went, He said, do you smoke? And the guy went, He said, do you have any cigarettes? And the guy went, He said, regular or menthol? Well, I grabbed the 3 packs away and said, well, I can do that now. I don't think he had any business in that hospital. I think he went and hid out with his friends back there that knew him. And I stumbled around there and gave away those cigarettes and started chit-chatting with those people that were in detox. And he came and got me. And on the way out across the parking lot, he said, oh, Gordon, he said, what did you want to talk with me about? What was bothering you? And I couldn't remember. I experienced gratitude, an attitude of gratitude. He took me out of myself and got me that example of gratitude. What if I told y'all he did that to me twice before I caught on to what he was doing? He took me to a prison meeting and introduced me to the folks, and said he had come back next Friday night with me. I went for 3 years, and he never came back. But he got me started. Talked to Wallace before the meeting tonight. That ended up with us going to Raleigh and being honorary outside members of a group there for several years. I was in the halfway house, and a fellow spoke to us when I was brand new sober. His name was Tom I. And I went up to him after the meeting and was talking with him. And I knew he said he lived in Aberdeen. And so I said to him, where are you staying? And he said, oh, I'm driving back home. And I couldn't get my head wrapped around that. How would somebody drive from Aberdeen to Wilmington to speak in a halfway house in the middle of the week? And so I was thinking today, since 1982, they allowed me to be manager of the halfway house I'd gotten sober in. And from then till now, I have had the privilege of working with alcoholics and in programs that have done some really good work with alcoholics. I was cautioned all the way by members of AA and sponsors and friends to say this to you tonight about my employment. I made a living working with alcoholics, but I live because of Alcoholics Anonymous. Working with alcoholics is wonderful, but it is not my recovery. AA is my recovery. And so I don't apologize for it, but it is, it's been a wonderful journey, and I'm grateful. I'm very grateful. Things got much better with my parents and my children. I met my wife Jo in Alcoholics Anonymous in Wilmington, and we started sparking, and we've been married 37 years. Because of Jo being in my life, my children were allowed to come and live with me one at a time. My ex-wife and her husband and my ex-in-laws realized that something had happened with me and it was good, and they trusted me. They trusted me enough to allow the children to come and be with me, and because of Joe being in my life, that was doable. We could do that. And so that's been wonderful. I talked to you about, I can't tell you the number of Saturday mornings that I was supposed to do something with my kids that I would beg off or tell a lie or not show up or whatever. And I told my oldest daughter, Shannon, one day when I'd been sober a while, I said, Shannon, I wish I had one of those Saturday mornings back when you were 8 years old. Just one of those Saturday mornings. I'd give anything. I'm so sorry for all the trouble I caused with my drinking. And I wish there was some way I could make up for it. She had 2 little children, and she pushed them toward me and said, you can, take these. And so I've been a part of their lives, and I don't want to sound, well, I'm very grateful for that, but there is a way to pay it forward. There is a way to pay it forward. I got one story that's very special to me. You know, we talk about I have changed in Alcoholics Anonymous, and that is true. I have changed, no question. But is it that I have changed, or have I been changed? That would be what I believe. I have been changed. Being with you in this program and the higher power that I pray to, I have been changed. That's the way I feel about it. But anyway, I got a lot of great stories about my kids and grandkids, but I'm just going to tell you one. I have a son named Michael, and he married a beautiful Greek girl named, and her father died. Kathy, beautiful girl, wonderful woman. He was to be buried in Greensboro, South Carolina in the middle of the week, and so my wife Jo and I went down there from Greensboro, and we were there in this place with all these folks. And I look, and my little 2-year-old granddaughter, Ava, their child, they don't have anybody to tend to Ava. And I asked my wife, Jo, I said, what would you think about me keeping Ava outside during this service? And Jo said, go for it. So I asked my son, Michael, I said, Michael, what would you think about me taking care of Ava? He looked at me and he said, well, we'll try it, but if you need me, come to the side door over there and I'll see you. Gotcha. Went out there, that little girl wore me out. 2-year-olds, 2.5 or whatever, she got away from me. I lost her twice. Go run her down and get her. And she finally fell down a ditch bank and got red mud all over her, and I had to take my hanky and spit on it and clean her. Went to a spigot to kind of finish the job. Never been so glad to see anybody in my life as I was when my son and his wife came out of that building. I mean, I am fried. Thank you. And I go home. That night I got a phone call from my daughter-in-law, and she said, Mr. Rail, which she insisted on calling me and still does to this day. She said, Mr. Rail, thank you for what you did today to let my people see the kind of family that I married into. And tears jumped out of my eyes. I would have never thought of doing anything like that before I found you folks and before I, started trying to live this program a little bit. Never would have occurred to me to be that perceptive or think of other people instead of myself all the time. And so I thanked her. But about 20 minutes later, the phone rings again, and it's my son Michael. And he doesn't know his wife has just called me. And he said, Dad, thank you for what you did today. He said, I should have made some arrangements. I needed to be with my wife during that service, and I'm so grateful for you doing what you did. My son had kept me at arm's length the whole time I'd been sober. He was nice, he was respectful and all that, but it wasn't real comfortable. From that day to this day, it changed. It changed that day. So I'm so grateful that you folks have, when I heard Dave C. speak in the early days of my recovery, and he talked about, in our AA book, about you do what you need to do, and you do it for a little while, and you find out it's what you wanted all your life. So you do what you need to do instead of what you want to do, and after a little while here, you realize that it's what you wanted all your life. And I tried to get him to tell me where it was, and he just grinned at me, and I knew what that meant. Find it in the book, and I did find it, next to the last story in the personal stories. So that's been my story. When they said you live your way to better thinking, and you do what we do, and you get what we get. I didn't believe in your program of recovery, but it wasn't long before I realized that you all believed in the program. You were the real deal. You walked the walk. You seemed comfortable. You wore your alcoholism comfortably. You weren't ashamed. And you laughed. And you laughed at yourselves. You didn't laugh at me. You treated me with dignity and respect. And you told stories on yourselves. So I didn't believe in your program of recovery, but I knew you did. And the kicker was, is you acted as if you believed in me. And I didn't believe in me. But you did. And I thank you for that.